Hi, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And today's episode, I am talking to Kiko Cortez. He has his own body get in shape type of thing called the P.A.I.N method, which he can talk about. It's pretty cool. He has such a powerful story of rebuilding and starting over. And I'm just really excited that he decided to say yes to joining. If you hear the background noise, my cat just decided right now was the time to eat. So Kiko, you want to share a little bit about your story?
Sure. I guess just a little recap is, I grew up, kind of, as they would say, in the streets, a lot of crime going on around me from an early age. I got into, criminal activities early on, being arrested the first time at 12, being locked up in a detention center at 13. And then that just setting the trend in and out of detention center, moving around my whole life until ultimately at 17. I was waived to an adult for some armed robberies, sent to prison for 5 years. I got out for 13 days and, still, I guess, not ready to start over at that point, reoffended. And at this time, they gave me 20 years. And so, all in all, besides that 13-day little vacation, if you will, I spent 24 years in prison from 17 to 41. Now I'm 44. August 1st will be 3 years that I've been free now. And so, yeah, I guess the starting point for starting over is just, the fact that I went to prison at 17. And again, like I said, I got out. I thought I was about to start over, but I was still, holding on to a lot of past ways. I went right back into, a non-conducive environment for that type of situation for someone so young and really not having any tools to change my life yet. And so I quickly went back to prison, and it was kind of that incident right there, that thinking life's about to restart and then instantly being back in prison again was kind of like that shock that really from that moment. Now there was plenty of time along my 20 years that I got into trouble. I was still, because when you're in that world, you're in that world. But really from that point early on, starting the 20 years, had been laid like the seeds of what ultimately became, my starting over point. And so it was just became a point of waiting to start over for years, just waiting and waiting, trying to prepare myself as best I could. And then that kind of leads up to my starting over. I don't know if you want me to launch right into that now or.
What kinds of things did you do to start to prepare yourself for starting over while you were waiting?
Well, the first and probably the most important thing was I kind of like instantly realized the things that I didn't really do or take advantage of while I was doing the 5 years the first time before getting out for 13 days. The main one being working out. Like I got in there like most young guys. You get into prison, you want to get jacked, you want to get some tattoos, and it's basically cliche, but like all cliches, based on a lot of reality. And so the time when I did the 5 years, I had never stayed with my workout for more than 6 months. So when I got immediately reoffended, I was in the county jail. I was on my workout, and kind of from there to my transition to being sent to prison, I resolved that no matter what, I was going to go 1 year without like not taking a day off, but a 1 year without missing. You know what I mean? You have your days off and whatnot, but that I was going to work out a year straight, and that was like where I kind of started it at. And of course, that was tough at first as you build those habits, but and I was kind of counting the time. But by the time I actually got to the year, I was so locked in on that world, and just locked in on my fitness and my goals as far as weightlifting, that I blew right past the year, and I just kept it going. And that's like the biggest thing, because really that was like the root of every other change that happened to me. Because like up until then, I'd always been get money fast. I call it like the gambler slash robber mentality. It's kind of very similar mentality as someone who will risk it all on a gamble to make money or whatnot, as someone who will risk their freedom, their life, everything on, armed robbery, all for one big payout. Rather than, I'd never been the type of person, even though I was in the streets and I dealt with drugs, I didn't even have the patience to be a good drug dealer, because I was just more like, okay, get it, mess it up, and then some quick payoff. There's always some quick scheme to come up. And then, but when you come into fitness, you can't do that. There's no quick button. You got to show up every day. You got to, your nutrition on a daily basis, and consistency is everything. And so through lifting weights, it's like a lot of these, morals or principles that lead to success in almost any field, whether it's business, whether it's life, whether it's in a relationship, whatever it is, consistency, dedication, whatnot. I picked all those up kind of like you say, like, you put a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. Like, how you kind of trick kids into eating something by sneaking broccoli in. It's like all I was thinking about was the workout, getting muscles and all that. But in the meantime, I was just learning all these lessons that then I started to kind of apply that diligence and that consistency in other areas. And some of those things were just like, I kind of just entered a stage of, I almost like kind of compare myself to like a monk in this little monastery where I was reading philosophy, I was reading world history, classic literature, and just really trying to just educate myself, because I'd been kicked out of school in 9th grade and never went back. And never like had like that real formal education, but having a certain level of intelligence, I just kind of just embarked on giving myself my own education. But again, the working out laid the foundation for all of that. And it just came about that within 2 to 3 years of that fitness journey, I got involved in like within the prison system, running like wellness class is one thing they call it down here in Florida, a weightlifting class, aerobics. And now I'm actually like training people and working with people, and I'm learning more about this stuff. And I had an epiphany one day, and I was like 24 years old, and I was just sitting there watching people work out. It was just like an off day for me. And it kind of just hit me right then. I was like, you know what? I could be totally happy doing this for the rest of my life, not doing time, but this fitness world, this weightlifting, that up until then, I'd always had this, like maybe many people from my situation, this dream of being a millionaire, and not quite sure how it was going to be. Of course, it was from illegal means at some point in time. And like any kid that plays sports, making it big in sports, whatever it may be, you just have this vision of being a millionaire. And it was in that moment I was realized, like, you know what, if I could, support a family, have a house, and doing this, I would be totally happy to it. And it was game changing because that kind of informed my way. At that point, I still had at least 15 years left to do in prison, 15, 16, 17 years to do in prison. But in my mind and my ideas of what I would do when I got out went through a lot of different iterations. But the one steady that came back was the fitness field. And it was the one thing that I could really practice on a daily basis. In prison, you might want to be a IT, involved individual, but you have no resources to really learn that until so you're kind of like on hold till you get out. But I was able to always, kind of led my workout crew, and whether informally or more of a formal type of group class. And so all along, I was kind of getting prepared for this. So I was able to get better at what I wanted to do in there, which again is a rarity. There's not a lot of different fields that you're in there and you could actually prepare for, depending on what state you're in, whatnot. But here in Florida is the case. And so I definitely say that initial decision, hey, I'm going to take this 1 year, I'm going to dedicate to my fitness. And just everything came up out of that. And it's actually like one of my things that I say now is like a 1 year of P.A.I.N campaign, you know what I'm saying? And for anybody wondering what P.A.I.N stands for, it's persistent application of intensity and nutrition, which is basically boils down to work out hard, challenge yourself with your workout, and eat, in a way that's going to conform with whatever your goals are, whether it's getting bigger, whether it's getting leaner. And so anyways, and interject if you need another question, but or steer me in a proper direction. But that kind of set the stage all the way up until fast forward until I had about 3 years left. I'd been studying informally forever, but then my brother and his wife sent me a NFPT personal training manual, and I dissected it over my last couple years. Actually, I think I had 17 months left when I got it, and by the time I was done, it had highlighters, and I just completely just internalized almost everything I could in there. And as soon as I got out, I got my certification, and I just kind of launched on it. But I was the whole time, I guess the biggest thing is like the whole time in one way or another, I was preparing myself for the opportunity to start over. And it was kind of just my ex-wife, she was made a statement as I was getting out. It's like that she kind of visualized me as a horse in the starting gate, like the Kentucky Derby or something, kind of just like paw on the ground, ready to go, but just kind of waiting for that gate to drop. And it was pretty accurate because that's basically how it came out. Just like, this one goal, this one dream. And I knew there was a lot of stuff. Excuse me. There was a lot of stuff. I knew there was a lot of stuff that I didn't know that I was going to have to learn along the way, but I just did my best. Just like whether it was newspapers, whether it was a show on TV, whether it was a commercial, just trying to gain any information I could gain about how is it actually really is it to be a personal trainer? What type of things am I going to have to go through? And it was hard, like, just finding information that you want in prison. It's not like out here where you can just search it out. So I'll kind of leave it at that and see where you want to go with the next question.
I really love just listening to your story because you have so much, like, I just think it's really inspiring how determined, like, I've just your level of determination, like watching you, I'm like, wow, I need to work out more. Like, and I like how it started with the workouts and that discipline. Like, you built the discipline not to build the discipline, but it was a side effect. And
Yeah,
then you were able to kind of use that to discipline yourself towards educating yourself and like looking for the information you wanted, and then really just like training for that career that you decided you wanted. And the idea of pawing at the gate once like you're waiting for the race start, the horse race to start, I can totally see that. What was the hardest part? Because you prepared for it for, like you said, 15 years. What was the hardest part when you actually got out with implementing? Because like learning is different than actually applying.
definitely. Well, the hardest thing was, again, like these things that I didn't know about. Like I had like a rough idea, but just how personal training actually um, actually took place, like how you go about getting your employment, or how, and like, because the biggest thing for me was, which route do I go? Do I go independent from the beginning and just seek out my own clients, train them, wherever I happen to train them at, or do I go seek employment at a gym? I mean, I learned enough to know that going to a gym and getting paid, you're going to get, peanuts, cents on the dollar of what the gym's making. But then on the flip side, you have steady employment. You're guaranteed at least a check. You're going to get reps. You're going to have, the experience, and you're going to have other people kind of guide you. But then on the flip side, going independent from the beginning, it might be harder to get clients, one, two, but each client is gonna be, a great, you're gonna get all the, whatever it is that you're charging them, all the money's gonna come directly to you. So it might only be one versus all these people, but one client might equal, 10% of what a paycheck would be, and then just you could build it up like that. So what kind of biased me towards going independent was really just like I kind of had this from so many years of being in the Department of Corrections, of being in front of judges in the courtroom and constantly like explaining myself, explaining my story, begging for a chance, just trying to always convince somebody that you're better than what a decision you made so long ago was. I kind of resolved it. I just had somewhat of an aversion, and maybe that's a handicap. I mean, I say it definitely could be a handicap, but an aversion to going to an employer and being like, please give me a chance. And I was like, you know what? Let me have this one-on-one relationship with each individual client, because I feel like generally when I interact with people, I mean, it's always generally a good interaction. So I kind of lean that way. And to be honest, I had the support of my, now ex-wife, but the woman that was in my life, supported me greatly and helped facilitate certain things as far as like bringing me my first client. Getting it set up with equipment to train people with. And so it kind of that's all I needed, was just a little bit of assistance on one end or the other. I'm sure if it had been a gym owner, they would have been like, hey, listen, come here. I got you. I'm going to put you in there. Maybe that would have been the route I would have taken. But so actually just which way to start first was tough. And then it was almost everything else. How do I go? How do I get clients? How do I advertise? What do the biggest freaking question and like a mystery, what do I charge people? It's like, it's not like planted on signs on the side of the wall. Like even if you go onto training websites And now that I'm a seasoned personal trainer, have my own company, I understand the whole sales approach to, you don't just blast a big number out there on the wall. There are certain steps you take before you sell someone on packages and whatnot before the prices comes up. So anywhere you would go, you would never see the price of what these people are actually charging. So I kind of had like no barometer for that. And like now what I learned is a chronic thing with personal trainers. I sold myself short and I went the route of, oh, I'm just going to lowball and I'm just going to work my butt off. And like that, I'm going to make it up. And, subsequently I learned that the whole idea of lowballing is actually, it's counterintuitive, but it actually turns people away from you. Just like if you see something's real cheap, you think, oh, it's cheap, it's not that good. So anyways, without getting into a tangent about all that, it's just things like that. Like, what do you charge? How much time, how long should my session be? Should I give them 30 minutes? Should it be an hour? And I'm just like trying to find all this information. And it wasn't just lined up in a manual. When you get the certification, they teach you about the human body, the biology, the movement patterns, and all this different stuff about the actual training. But there was like 2 paragraphs on actually running a personal training business in the book. So it was like, that was probably the biggest thing. Just like all the actual, okay, I knew how to put a workout together, or at least I thought I did. Now it's laughable where I was then compared to where I've come. But yeah, it was all the things outside of the workout and just finding out what they are, and then like, okay, picking what I'm going to do.
So it sounds like a lot of what you had to learn, the learning curve, was what you needed to actually start a business and be an entrepreneur. So it was like you knew you wanted to be a personal trainer and you had a lot of the knowledge on how to do the personal training. And it sounds like there was even a learning curve with that where you've gotten better with doing the workouts as the years have gone by. But that's amazing that you were able to like sort through all of that and realize your knowledge gaps. Do you think that being a self-learner when you were preparing to get out kind of helped you pick those things up?
I definitely do. I mean, I think that's always been my way, and it can be a detriment at times. Not like have something like a issue with like asking questions. I think the same thing that's driven me towards like seeking out like information and knowledge on my own is that same thing that's kind of could be looked at as a bit of a negative trait. Whereas I hate asking a question or appearing that I don't know something. I mean, that could definitely be a fault to a certain, at a certain level. But the one positive from that attribute is that I've constantly sought out this information and knowledge so that I don't find myself in that position where I don't know. But again, sometimes you just need a mentor, somebody, who's already been through it just to save you time. And which I eventually came across, that type of mentor after a little while of, just figuring it out myself. But yeah, being a self-learner, I think it's helped me. I mean, even to this day, I sit here and, you get your certification, but if you just rest on the laurels of getting that certification, you're never going to be, a great personal trainer. It's got to be constantly seeking out information, which it may sound funny, but to me, I call YouTube, like I'm a University of YouTube graduate, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, I just sat there. If I'd have had it while I was in prison, it would have just been so much more, because all that knowledge would have been available to me. But of course, they don't, you're not allowed to get on any of that type of internet like that. So, but since I've been out, first of all, when you're just going into it, you can just, you type, how the algorithms are, you type in certain stuff, you're going to get bombarded with a lot of stuff, and you don't know what is legit and what's not until you have a certain amount of knowledge to discern with. But slowly but surely, I found these good like mentors, remote mentors, and just off of this free content was just able to just like bridge the gap in my knowledge, and that's just like even today, going on 3 years out here doing this and spending 12 to 16 hours in the gym on a daily basis is somewhat regular. I'll come home, and after having trained maybe 30, 40 people in a day, some one-on-one, some in small groups, some in big groups, I'll come in and I'll turn on YouTube and I'll follow, Brett Contreras or, Luca Hocevar, some of these guys who I really trust their expertise. They have PhDs, Renaissance periodization, Mike Israetel. I'll come turn on one of their latest videos because I know now I'm going to learn something new. It might be some little tweak. It might be, clear up a misconception that I had, but I just think that curiosity and that for one, just the love of the topic matter, which is,
Yeah.
the best thing that I could do is just having chose this thing that I love so much is what's has allowed me to, one, constantly seek out new knowledge and get better, and put in such hours actually doing it. I know I kind of got off the answer, but yeah, being like that self-learner, I think has definitely been a strength, though again it could be a detriment at times when I don't want to be the guy to be like, hey, how is this? But I just ask my questions silently to YouTube.
Well, and I think if you ask confidently, just because you have a knowledge gap doesn't mean you have to come off as not knowing what you're doing. Sometimes asking questions can show that you have expertise because you can actually like think of questions to answer or ask that's really specific to the material. But
I
I can
agree,
also
bro.
understand where so much of your learning is self-learning, how you may kind of want to weigh that carefully because you don't want to appear um to have a knowledge gap that you like. It makes sense. It makes sense. There's a vulnerability there that you may not want to have out. Um, there was a question I really, so you talked about when you like the first time you were out, you served 5 years and then you went back, and you had that gambler like that type of mindset, and now you're building your own business. Like, what has it been like internally to shift your relationship to how you make money?
Oh, I mean, the shift really changed. Like I said, it changed way back then. Um, I mean, because before that was really like, I mean, again, I went to prison at 17, was out for a brief, not even 2 weeks, and went back. So I didn't even have a legitimate way, you could say, of making money other than just robbing or just coming up on it, selling drugs, in a haphazard fashion, but always just going back to somehow a way, whether it's burglary or robbery or whatever, either taking something from somebody or just not having anything. So there really was no work ethic at all. And so again, the workouts, the exercise, that taught me that work ethic. But then another one is like, while you're in prison, particularly in Florida prison, you don't have any type of state pay. Other prisons, my first 5 years was in Indiana and the 20 years was in Florida. And in Indiana, they give you state pay. It might be a small number, but it's a little something every month that you can get some of your basic necessities with. In Florida, there's nothing. They'll give you like a toothpaste. They don't give you deodorant. They don't give you any type of food other than the 3 trays that you get in the chow hall. And you're basically in a position where if you don't have somebody helping you from the streets, you're going to have nothing. You're going to be in a constant state of hunger. And it's a very like hard way to live. And so, and naturally, what do people do? There's all types of little hustles that wouldn't be illegal in any other scenario, except for they have a rule where you're not allowed to barter. Opening up a laundry business where you launder people's clothes and charge them some commissary for it is technically against the rules there, but people will do it. People be like, okay, hey man, I'm what? They'll give themselves a bottle of bleach and some some soap and stuff like that, and they'll open shop. They'll wash people's clothes and they get a little something for it. Other people obviously selling drugs would be a more profitable one, where you're actually making enough money to send money home. But whatever it was, I mean, I had I got into that once I realized, like, man, I wasn't having any money coming from the streets. My people were in situations where they really couldn't look out at that time period. And it was just, I had a summer of doing real bad, not having nothing. And I just thought, but I'm seeing how people hustle, how people make money in there. And the first one I did was you get yourself a bag of coffee, you break it down into a bunch of little individual spoonfuls, and now you sell them for soups and you turn a little profit. And you take some of your profit, set it to the side, you take enough to go back and trade someone the soups for the bag of coffee, and then now you get another bag of coffee. And it's, and you just do that. And I did the same thing with cigarettes. Open the pack, roll up a bunch of them, sell 3 for a soup. And I started with these real small little, again, hustles as we call them, but it's really like it's entrepreneurism that was happening there. I mean, you're sitting there like, okay, but again, ignore the fact that one thing is against the rules, whether because it's illegal on the streets or whether because it's just a rule in prison. People are all over, whether it's running little gambling parlays, so people can get all types of just different little hustles. And I sat there and I learned, okay, how do you make money doing this? How you do that? And I got on my hustle real hard. Besides, and again, working out comes back into the picture because if your goal is to get big, lifting weights, gain a lot of muscle, you have to eat or it's not going to happen. And when you're in prison, you're not getting money. Starvation is a close friend. You know what I'm saying? Like near, like I don't want to
Yeah.
sound exaggerate, but you're not getting enough calories to grow any muscle. So you have to find a way to get more food. And that was really what fueled me to be a hustler when, again, I really wasn't that type of person to begin with. I was somewhat lazy and but I was fearless. And so I would do crazy stuff to get what I needed. But I never had that constancy, that just to stay at something. But again, to fuel my workouts, got out of my comfort zone, learned some of these hustles, and eventually got better and better at it. I was loan sharking. I was, and you're having to learn this responsibility and now of I have to keep my re-up to go get more product, sell enough at a margin to take a profit. And so through this, I learned, entrepreneurism and just the way, an economy works. And that kind of just like, I just fine tuned that. And it just, once you're in that situation, kind of like out here in the free world, I'm out here, I have an apartment, I have a car, I have bills to pay. And if I don't pay them, no one else is going to do it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to lose those
Yeah.
things. So in there, it's the same type of, if I don't do this, I'm going to be hungry. I'm not going to have coffee. I'm going to have to be asking people for stuff. And it's like, a horrible situation, angry all the time. So that drove me. And that also kind of taught me that lesson of like, you know what, you got to go, you got to do this. You always have to be figuring out some way to make money. And so that, again, coming from the workout, it took on a life of its own, and then that kind of like just, grew on its own. And while my workout stuff was over here. And to the point that I even had periods where I was thinking about just coming out, starting a lawn care company, starting this. I was just in that like hustler entrepreneurial mind frame now. I was constantly just trying, like talking to older guys who would actually, so many of the people in prison are just pure criminal. So they don't even have any enlightenment to give me someone who wants to be legit. But some guys, like slowly will show you meet people, or they made a mistake later in life, but they knew about running a business. And I would just like pick their brain, have conversations with them, and just kind of did everything I could to learn how people make money on an entrepreneurial basis out in the world. And again, all stemming from my working out and my goals there. And I've gone on so long, I kind of forget the exact point of the question, but yeah.
No, that was really good. I love that. Like, I'm so inspired by how you learned to hustle. Like, it's one of those situations that like you think about going to prison for. Were you there total like 25 years between the first
24 and a half, yeah.
24? It's like more than half your life. Like
Yeah.
that could have broken you. You could have been angry. You could have been bitter. And it's just amazing. Like you made the best of it once you started working out and then realizing that you wanted to be a personal trainer, and then you developed a passion. And you can tell it's a very consuming passion when you're talking about constantly learning new skills and upping your own ability. And then on top of that, using the lesson of like hustling to feed yourself literally for your workouts, and also just that mindset of being able to like get out of your comfort zone and to get information from people. And like it's hard, I think, sometimes if you're not in like the information deficit, like just when you're in prison, how information's not readily available because like you said, there's not YouTube, and I don't know if you have internet access, but it's not going to be the way it is when no.
Yeah, no.
That's because also like you were there during some critical technological advances.
No.
Like cell phones, when you went in, they were probably like flip phones and the Nokia brick.
Well, yeah, they were around, but literally, like when I went in '98, most people were still rocking pagers. Only people you would see with some of the early little phones would be like people that had business. Obviously, some drug dealers, but most drug dealers still just rocked off of pagers. And and then when I got out for that brief 13 days, 5 years later, it was already everybody, even like crackheads, had little flips or the Nokia brick, and all of them were out now. And then I went right back. I never had my own cell phone until I got an illegal cell phone in 2011. And from then on, again, as my hustling progressed, I got heavily into, introducing drugs into the prison, mostly marijuana or K2, the synthetic marijuana, and ultimately smuggling cell phones. I got caught smuggling one in. And at the time, like I said, when you still have, 10, 12, 13, 14 years, you're not quibbling about, oh, I could possibly get into more trouble. All you're thinking is, I'm hungry. I need to make sure that I, have. And it got to the point where I was able to, send money out to my mom, to my girlfriend, helping them with the car note, helping them with the phone bill. And obviously they're helping me by facilitating what I got going on. But yeah, I went to like no cell phones at all. And then in 2011, but then from 2011 basically to 2018, I was almost constantly had a cell phone because I was just constantly engaged in, introducing contraband and whatnot. But then once I got close, that's when I realized like I actually got what really like was the kind of thing that caught me to back out and focus all the way on the streets. Was I actually got caught with a cell phone and what would be small amount of marijuana out here, a quarter ounce, which was a large amount there. I got caught with it, and I'd been in trouble many times. Almost every situation I'd been in trouble in prison had been behind trying to make money and trying to just provide. And this final time I was caught, but this time they actually gave me a break, and they were like, you know what? We're gonna just do this, that, and whatever. And I had another epiphany in that moment where I was just like, you know what? It's time to stop just trying to make the time pass as best as possible, and it's time to just prepare to get out as soon as possible. Because I could have lost some of my time. I could have lost up to 6 months of my game time. They could have gave me an outside charge for the cell phone. It could have been way worse. And it was kind of the thing that woke me up. It was like, you know what? I think I had 4.5 to 5 years left at the time. And I was like, you know what? It's time to stop everything and really focus. And I swore, like I vowed to myself that day. I was like, because I would smoke marijuana. But I said, you know what? No more phones, no more indulging in marijuana until I can legally do it. And I stayed true to that. I did the whole rest of my time. I got out as early as I possibly could have. I got into a little IT class where I was able to get some rudimentary knowledge of a computer, because even though I've now been on cell phones, I never had a PC in my house growing up. You know what I mean? I never had and laptops weren't, like they are obviously now, or even close. So I never had an actual computer that I hadn't just like played video games on or something like that. That was at someone else's place. So thankfully I learned a little bit about it there. But anyways, to sum that up, I forget exactly what we were on, but yeah, so it's definitely a lot of transitional periods.
It just like the having to weigh the pros and cons in this situation, because it's like not an ideal situation to thrive in, and to try to navigate the rules while also thriving. And then also your self-discipline. Like it's really quite amazing to me how much self-discipline you developed. I remember we were in the lunchroom when I was working at the crystal shop, and we got in a discussion about the Spartan Wars between, I think it was Athens and Sparta.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really into it, so I was reading a lot of it at the time. And then you started talking, and you knew so much more than I'd been reading about it. And I was just like blown away by the level of history that you knew. And that's one of the things that really impressed me, because I was like, you were locked away, and it would have been easy to squander your time, but you really did invest a lot of time in learning things and educating yourself. And it's really, I love hearing the other part of the story too, where you learned to hustle and like get out of your comfort zone and build the work ethic. It's really quite amazing to me, like how you became such an amazing person in circumstances that could have definitely gone any other way.
Yeah, and there was definitely, pivotal points. I mean, things could have went. I mean, for so much of that time, I mean, there was literally a part of me that felt like, you have an out date, but when you're in prison, there's no guarantee that you're going home until you go home. Whether it's because something happens to you while you're there. I mean, it could be a murder, it could be an illness, it could have been COVID, whatever, or just the fact that you're getting to a situation where you gain more time, or you have, maybe kill somebody or do something. And you see it happen all the time. People, I've seen a good friend had 10 months left and killed somebody, you know what I mean? And it was kind of in a situation where his hand was forced, and, he's never coming home now. And so the whole time this is all happening, there was a bit of a large disbelief that I would ever actually get out. You know what I mean? It was like, it's like you see it happen, but it's so far away for you. Just think like, in the back of my mind, it was always kind of there. But it's like studying and reading and all all that, I mean, I could have been perfectly happy just doing that. And that was like more, but then again, having to, because like me going out and announcing to someone, hey, I'm doing this. I've always had, and it's probably the same underlying thing about my hesitancy to ask people questions is an underlying like fear of rejection. And I know that I've dealt with in a lot of things. And it's like one of the things that I'm like currently working on, because I know if I can surmount that, I'm basically gonna have whatever I want. But it's definitely like an underlying thing that always kept me from doing certain things, and I had to overcome that for sure to be able to, just a small thing, and let people know, hey, I got bombs of coffee for soup, hey, you know what I mean, and just like the whole complex, people gonna be like, whatever, you know, but yeah, I mean, I appreciate the kind words, and on a good, cool little note, I actually am going to Greece July 17th. Got the tickets. It's kind of still hasn't sunk in all the way yet, but I think it'll definitely be a big culmination of, you know, reading about the Peloponnesian War. You know, back in the day, you know, those early days when that first year of working out was going on. Like one of the things, like I was constantly looking for things, because you know I came up in a Christian home, and then but then I'd have like all types of, you know, hold up, I don't know if this is me, and I was just looking for what is real, what do I believe, you know what I'm saying, what's my like moral system, what's my this, and so you know, and that's what kind of led me through studying religion, studying psychology, and getting into history and whatnot. And in that time period where that's going on, where I'm waking up and I'm forcing myself to go in and keep that streak alive, working out, Homer's Iliad was like one of my things that I would go to, not the poetic version of it, but the prose, and um, just like reading like those words, like you know, there's a quote in there that's always stuck with me. It's the character Ajax. He's in a battle and he says, "He smote his breast and thus reproached his heart. Endure, heart, far worse hast thou endured." You know what I'm saying? And that like resonated with me. Like, you know what I mean? Every time there was a hard time, every time there was something, I was like, far worse hast thou endured. You know what I'm saying? Let's keep it going. And just as, and I say that just to point out that like that book, that ancient Greek, you know, book, to now come full circle and be heading over there. You know, I'm sure I'll soak it up even more in hindsight, but yeah, it's pretty remarkable to, you know, just thinking like, you
That's
know, am I ever going to make it out of this shit? All I'm doing is like reading books, and I mean, even already, you know, having, you know, gone around different places since I've been out. But yeah, just is it's pretty cool.
I'm really excited to know that you're going to Greece. That's so cool because it's like you imagine it and you're reading the books and like imagining what the wars were like, and now you actually get to go and see the ruins. That'll be so amazing.
Gonna be crazy. That's why I try to tell people. Everyone's like, you know, a lot of the clients, obviously, when you're in a personal trainer, you deal with, you know, people that are pretty affluent. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of my clients, they travel the world regularly, and so you hear about all these different trips and stuff like that. When I tell them I'm going to Greece, they're like, "Oh, that's great. Oh yeah," and they're just thinking about all the different, like, you should check this out to do this, and it's usually like, you know, some of it's about the historic stuff, but it's really just about another place to tour for them. And to me, yeah, it's literally gonna be like, you know, like, you know, and some people that know me know, but like literally I can like stand over here and be like, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened. And so for me, that's definitely gonna be like you know, that those are the type of things that I dreamed about the whole time. So again, that's, you know.
I love knowing that you've worked so hard and you have dreams that are coming true. It's like you really got out and you're just like thriving. It's amazing. Like it's amazing, like not in a sense that like, oh, but like you've done so much and you've overcome so much.
Well, yeah, I mean, and just sitting here having this conversation is good, because, you know, just like, I mean, just from, you know, this little bit of conversation, I might come off as someone who like knows no like hesitation or doubt, or just is like always like steadfast and strong. But like anybody, I mean, I'm sitting here like it could be, you know, any other day of the week, and you're just like anybody, you think like, man, am I ever going to cross over this next? This is where I'm at now. Am I ever going to level to the next level? Or is this, you know, when you see your like these obstacles. And you know, in the moment, you can forget about the obstacles you've already surmounted, and so I mean, it is cool sitting here and hearing like, and you know, you obviously like kind of knowing more of my story than the average person, and it's good to, you know, I appreciate that for sure, because you know, again, it's if anyone thinks that, you know, hears this and they're like, oh, but I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that. And if you think I wasn't, or you think anyone else has done anything wasn't, it's not. It's never going to be like. And again, and when I was kind of on a related note, when I was thinking about this conversation, I was thinking, okay, starting over, and naturally, the big starting over is when I got released from prison after all that time. But when I think about it, there were so many starting overs while I was in prison because, like, every time that I would get caught with something that I was, hustling, I'm going into confinement. You lose basically everything you get. If it's a serious enough offense, you're transferred to a whole new prison. And when you get out of that, the CM prison, as they call it in Florida, kind of like the SHU in other states, you get sent to a whole nother prison. So it's like so in those, 24 years, there was plenty of starting all over again. That I don't know, maybe that was like a little bit of the training. And I know, like most people who have gone through hard times and surmounted them, you understand that those hard times made you and taught you something and got you somewhere, but yet nobody's volunteering for more. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, if it wouldn't have been for this, wouldn't have been for that, I wouldn't be where I'm at and who I am today. But who's saying, can I get another cup of that suffering and that bad luck and all that? Can I get some more of that because it helped me out before? But only in hindsight do we appreciate what that does. But yeah, it's definitely been a lot of practices starting over in that microcosm of the real world. It's just a little thing I thought of as we were talking about starting over, because yeah, this is the big starting over, but there's a whole lot of little minor ones.
Well, and it's like every time you start over, you have to make the choice of like what it is to move forward, and it's a choice you make, like whether you're gonna go forwards or backwards, and it's a choice you make over and over and over again. And sometimes, you go back and forth. But when you stop and look at how far you've come, because like you were saying, like when you're in the middle of it and you feel the obstacles around you, or you feel the doubts, and you're like, am I ever gonna get to the other side? But because we're doing such a retrospect of your life in this, like looking back, what do you feel about like how now that you're like seeing how far you've come and like you've really shared a lot of about your journeys and all the little starting over and stopping and starting over and the setbacks, um like what does it feel like where you are right now looking back and seeing how far you've come and realizing that you're actually like you're going to Greece, you're going to go read, you're going to go see those places in real life that you've been reading about for a long time?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, it's majority of my day is just thinking about where I want to get to next. What I'm trying to accomplish next, and just keep expanding it. And of course, like anybody, particularly people that are kind of like driven and have goals, we're usually hard on ourselves way more than we're patting ourselves on the back. It's just
Mm-hmm.
most of the time I sit thinking like instead of um, looking at those reels on Instagram for 30 minutes, I could have got another post out and put more content out on the net, on my social media or whatever it may be. And people, like a lot of people, it usually takes like the perspective of other people to be like, yeah, you know what, you're right, because I'm sitting there thinking about like how much I earn now, how much, which really mostly I only think about how much I want to earn, ultimately, and then not even think that, like, what, hey, you're freaking out here, you're totally supporting yourself. I mean, not on any type of freaking welfare. I mean, I got my apartment, my car. I mean, everything. I don't sit there and count my pennies when I go to the grocery store. I just get whatever I want to. You know what I'm saying? And as sometimes I gotta remember that, like, this is the first time in my entire life that I've had my own place. I mean, I got my own little 2-bedroom apartment here, and which sitting back. Usually, again, you're always thinking about what you want or what you want trying to do next. But yeah, every now and then, I usually, like at the end of the night when I'm here by myself and I'm going to sleep, and I'm just like, so grateful, like to be here, have my own place, have that. But yeah, I mean, I definitely feel great. The guy who owns the gym where I train, because I'm the lead trainer at Bamboo Athletics in Ormond Beach, and I also run my own company out of that same facility. And he's always having to remind me, like, bro, ain't too many personal trainers that are doing it like you're doing it right now. You know what I'm saying? Not average personal trainer for sure. I mean, there's obviously some exceptional, real famous people that got it going on. And so it's just little things like a comment here from him, or a comment from my girlfriend, like pointing, like, damn, you're like, she's like, hey, I've been out here 33 years building towards where I'm at. And you've been out
She's a
here.
personal trainer too, right?
No, she's an engineer.
She's a what?
Engineer.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, real smarty
cool.
pants. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, but she like points out like, hey, you've been out here this amount of time and you're like doing this grown up stuff. So yeah, it definitely takes. I'm definitely appreciative of it. But at the same time, I feel like, hey, don't you rest on your laurels and you're just like, hey, yeah, look at me, I made it. You know what I mean? It's like not the story. Like
Mhm.
I was just talking about it somebody today. Ultimately, personal training isn't my end goal. My ultimate goal is to tell my story and use it to like inspire people, motivate people, and stop people. Hopefully, whether it goes from troubled youth that are on the path that I'm on, or CEOs who just need another perspective or something like that. Whatever it may be, and that's going to be the transition that I make. But for me, I'm like, all right, this business first, I need to have a certain amount of success that I view as a certain amount level of success at it, just to complete the story. You know what I'm saying? Because I definitely, yeah, you say, hey, you did all this, you went all these years in prison, came from this type of background, and you're staying free, and that's cool, that's great. We need more of that to happen for people. But I mean, I definitely want to, you know, make it as exceptional as possible, just to show that you don't only it's not just, hey, you can get out and you can stay free. No, you can get out and you can do anything that you want to do. You know what I'm saying? And that's to anybody. When I say get out, it's not get out of prison. It's get out of any situation that is not, beneficial to you, or it's not, helping you, fulfill yourself. And
Yeah.
that's really like my ultimate goal is to just, make this an undeniable, just great, ending to this little phase. And then just, go out and try to, encourage as many people as possible to, do the same thing.
I think you're well on your way. Just like listening to you recap your story on this, I understand where you feel like you may need like another layer of success, but I think you may be underestimating how inspirational and motivational what you've already done is.
I
And
appreciate that
that's
too.
just food for thought. Like you can take it
Yeah,
or leave it, but like I'm really glad that you're on the YouTube channel because I feel like your story is just so right on with what I want this channel to help inspire people. Because sometimes when we get stuck and it's like who we were, those skills no longer work. Like we can't go back to what we were doing, but we have a knowledge gap, but we don't even realize we have a knowledge gap. And so it's like we feel like we're stuck, but really it's not a stuckness of like it's more just not knowing what to do to move forward because we were never taught that in the past. And it's like you were in that space, but you proactively filled in the gap kind of organically in a way without realizing that's what you were doing when you started working out and you built you built your work ethic and your discipline and your conviction to just like stick to something, and then it just like grew from there. And sometimes it's just putting one foot in front of the other, and sometimes that's all you can do is like baby steps, but as long as you keep putting those baby steps forward, you end up someplace different than where you were. Whereas if you just like stay stuck and you just let that knowledge gap continue to widen, you end up really stagnant. And I'm like, I know that from personal experience.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, no doubt about it, man. My whole thing is what I tell everybody is just, for one, do it. Whatever it is that you're thinking about, just start doing it. You're gonna learn as you go. You know what I mean? Just you never.
Mm-hmm.
One of my things too, and someone I heard say something that they were that perfectionism is just another word for procrastination. You know what I'm saying? And I know it resonated with me immediately, because I know for so many things I would be like, no, it's got to be just right before I roll it out. Like I was, I wrote some books, a few novels and some essays and short stories and stuff like that. That was like my thing for years. And there was just like, oh, I'd rewrite it. Then I'd rewrite it. I was like, oh, it's got to be totally perfect for anybody who reads it. And that's just like an example of it. But so that's why I tell everybody is just, man, whatever you're wanting to do, start doing it now, because you're going to make mistakes and you're going to learn more from the mistakes. And so just do it, and then just go out there, start, and just never give up, because that's it. It's like you just, however many times you mess up, however many lessons you got to learn along the way, however many setbacks you got, if you just never give up, you should be like, no, I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm just going to keep doing it. You're going to get there. That's the thing. It's like, it's crazy. It's like, that's one thing that I've done for so long, and not to even get on like any type of metaphysical or any type of other stuff, but just like literally like manifesting. They say manifesting. I just would visualize. Still do. I mean, when I drive around in my Lexus IS 250, I pretend I'm driving a Urus, a Lamborghini Urus, or something to that effect. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I actually like kind of, and the same way that I used to be in my cell, I used to think about this exact stuff. You know, when I'm in a gym, doing whatever, whether I'm working out, whether I'm leading people through workouts, I would sit in the cell and just daydream about it. You know what I mean? And again, I don't think of it so much as like a actual supernatural thing. I just visualization. I don't know it, but it works because I find myself down the road things that I visualized about happening. And so again, just do it. Just start doing whatever it is. Never give up. You know what I mean? Just picture where you're gonna be. Picture that success, and as long as it's like anything. If you point yourself in the direction of a location and you start making it your way towards there, you might stop. You might take a couple steps backwards, but if you stay pointed in that direction, only thing, death is going to be the only thing that's going to stop you getting there. If you run out of time before you actually get there, but as long as you just keep plowing through it, and so that's really my what has worked for me, if you want to call it working, and what I believe. It's just, man, just freaking start doing it and don't stop. You know what I mean? For real.
I think that's a really good note to like wrap things on, because that's like the whole point, and the story just really like reinforces all the ways that you've learned to do that and then implemented doing that. Um, and so yeah, I want to wrap up the video, but I also want you to send me the link that you have for your business so I can include it in the description for the YouTube channel.
Okay, awesome. I got you.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks so much for popping on and
Yeah.
sharing your story. And
My pleasure. It's
um,
good to see you. Good to talk with you.
sorry, what?
I said for sure. It was good to see you. Good to talk with you.
Yeah, you too. I'm gonna stop the recording. Hold on one second.
Okay.